Hey, welcome to Photographer's Favorite Show. Thanks for joining. This is the show where I pick five of my favorite photos from other photographers, and my guest picks five of their favorite photos, and we talk about everything we love about them. Today, I'm really excited to have Tashi Schorr with me. Hey, Tashi, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I've had a little sneak peek at some of the photos you picked. You picked some awesome shots, so I can't wait to get to them. Have you been doing any fun photography lately? Getting out at all?
Uh, I went out for sunset last night and saw some oyster catchers, but that's about it.
Gotcha. Nice. I think what did you mention that when I was just chatting with you before we started, you mentioned there were some babies with them as well?
Yeah, but the babies were on another island pretty far out, so
Oh,
I couldn't
really?
get good
Oh, okay.
shots. Yeah.
And are these you're where you look at? You're out on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, I'm in the San Juan Islands.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice. And so there are they black oyster catchers out there or American?
Yeah, it's black.
Black? Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Um dude, you got some incredible stuff recently. You've done some really sweet traveling, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, where was the last place you went?
Uh, it's
Like
like
big
not
trip.
really like wild, but I went to Eastern Washington and saw
Uh-huh.
some burrowing owls.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's what this is from here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's sweet, man. Nice. It's so cool. The habitat that you have to photograph them on out there compared to what I get them over here in Florida is so different. It's way cooler out there. Definitely.
These guys are just sitting on a pile of rocks in a farmyard.
Oh,
But
really? No kidding.
yeah,
How
except it
did
was
you?
still like really pretty because there's rolling hills in the background
Oh, that's
covered in
awesome,
forest.
man. Nice. Is this
Yeah.
something that you found out from someone else? You found them on your own? Like, how did you come across these birds?
Well, I had seen this on eBird, like
Ah,
just because sometimes I look. But
yeah.
then I was talking, I think, to Izzy Edwards, and
Yep.
she mentioned that this was a place. So then I went here, and at first like we couldn't find any, and then we saw like one really far back, and we came back for sunset, and we saw like 10 or 15 of them.
Oh, nice, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome, man. Cool. Oh, love these guillemot, man. They're such a cool looking seabird, aren't they?
Yeah, I love all
Yeah, they're
Alcids.
really special. All right, cool. Nice, man. All right, you ready to get into the show?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. We'll start with the first photo that you chose. Um, dude, you know what? The first thing that strikes me on this one, well, I guess there's two things, right? First thing, that low perspective reflection is so nice. It's almost mirror, but not quite. It's like a little fuzzy. But the color scheme on this, I love how the background yellows kind of like match the little helmet there on the jacana. Nice. Um, and it's just such a great, intimate, low level, soft light, beautiful color scheme. Like the color scheme on this, I think, is the thing that first just really jumps out at me. Um, I don't feel like it's colors you see very often, and I love when this happens too, which I still can't mentally figure it out. But when you have like a color up here and then the reflection color is different, like it doesn't perfectly match, like that's so neat to me. And I guess it's because probably shooting down on it a little bit, so the reflection's not the same exact angle. But yeah, it's really cool. And I mean, what unique birds with their giant feet and that leaning over posture is really nice on that one. So yeah, I really like this. What made you pick this one out?
Well, for one, obviously, I really love Northern Jacanas. I've only seen a few in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like this one, it sparks so much emotion because of how it's just this weird looking bird feeding on this like tiny little bog
Yeah.
and everything you said, of course.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. They are a weird looking bird, but a nice engaging pose, like leaning in towards the camera, good eye contact. Well, not fully eye contact, but I mean, we can see the head and eye there, but
Yeah,
you can tell it's like very intently like hunting, whatever it is. Do you know what they feed on? I don't even know. Is it like vegetation or
it's
insects,
probably
aquatic stuff?
insects, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
guessing.
yeah. Yeah.
I haven't done
Gotcha.
this much research on them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know too much about them other than their giant feet. It's definitely like a classic feature on them. So nice, man. That's a great one. All right, let's move on to the next one. There you go. There's one for you. What do you think?
Yeah, I this is such a cool shot. I love the small in frame look to yellow to for this yellow throat, and yellow
Yeah.
throats are just really cool species, and the way it's singing, And I love the foreground. I don't know what
Yeah.
that foreground is. It looks like maybe like a blueberry bush, but it's probably not. It's probably a flower, but I don't know. That's what I first see when I look at that. And the background has the blue and yellow and green sort of like bokeh,
Yeah.
and I like it.
Yeah, yeah, very much agree with everything you said, man. Yep. The pose on that one is good, and it's a great use of space. You know, I mean, with these
Yeah,
warblers,
it's like
especially common yellowthroat, they're so well known to just be down in the thick, dense brush. You know, hard to get them out in the open. So when you get one like bush top like this, and you have space behind it to actually compose something small in frame and still have it stand out, it's certainly an achievement. Um,
yes.
yeah.
It's these guys are so hard
Right?
to
Yeah,
get.
always like deep in the brush. Have you spent much time with them?
Uh, I used to photograph them a lot back when I digiscoped, but
Oh, okay.
I haven't I haven't really found there's not many warblers here,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I haven't went out to the locations where these guys sometimes are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they actually in my area they do stand up to their name, right? They're pretty common in my area, but man, they are one of my toughest species to photograph every year. I'll see countless of them, but always struggle to get photos, especially something this pretty. Um,
Yeah.
I really love what you said that foreground splash right there of color just adds something else to it, right? It gives it that extra element of depth where it's not just clean perch and bird in focus and then background. Right now we have that foreground that almost gives you an appearance of just kind of peering in on the bird's life, and foreground just does that so well to me when it's out of focus and
Yeah, and
placed right.
I love the color, how the foreground isn't just like a green leaf or anything. It's just like it's in like an entire some sort of colorful thing.
Yeah, yeah, very much agree. Yeah, because if it was just green, it'd probably kind of blend in, almost disappear, right? So it pops a little
Yeah.
bit more, but it's soft enough and out of focus enough that it doesn't compete. It's not stealing attention
Yeah.
from the bird, really. Yeah, it's definitely adding in. So nice. Oh man, yeah. I mean, this is just ridiculous. These scenes that they have, these winter scenes are incredible. I mean, got to be such a difficult challenge to photograph in this kind of weather, when it's these temperatures and stuff like that. Certainly not anything I've probably dealt with. But absolutely love the snow there. A beautiful scene and a lot of birds in this, but they all work well, right? There's an obvious subject to this photo. And that's something that I personally struggle with a lot with any kind of multiple bird flock scenario. And I wouldn't necessarily call this a flock, at least like not a tight flock, but there's enough birds here that if we didn't have this hierarchy, I think it would be distracting. So we have main bird, then second back, and then it kind of goes back, and now we're into like the background birds. And so we have that like size hierarchy that kind of leads back like that. And then, it's so nice having the foreground one just looking into all the space in the frame. And then I love how you can just start to see the sun like kissing these trees back there, which is really nice. There's like a little bit of warmth happening in the sky, color temperature wise. That's a real nice contrast to the cold icy blue of the entire scene. And it almost looks like, I mean, it's hard to see. It almost looks like the photographer's just like out on the ice for this and not on a shoreline, which almost
Yeah.
feels like almost a little bit dangerous, like looking at it. But it's such a cool shot, man.
Yeah, I feel like all of what you said. Another thing is that like it's so normally with like that house in the background, I would not want like a human made thing, but the house almost like kind of makes me think about like a really like cold like northern scene, and
Hmm.
it's just like this little cottage with this lake full of these beautiful big swans, and it
Yeah.
just feels it's such an intimate moment with these swans because it feels like still in the moment,
Yes.
but it
Yep.
also feels like everything's moving, and
Yep.
the sun and all the colors just work perfectly. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely do. The stillness is definitely added. That's a great descriptive word for this with that layer of fog, that kind of steam hanging back there. You know what I mean? You can tell it's probably calm, pretty quiet. There's not a lot of wind blowing, or at least I assume not, or else you probably wouldn't see that much steam. Um, and yeah, that cottage definitely brings like a kind of a human element to the photo, but not in an overpowering way. You know?
Yeah, like it almost makes it so you can relate to the image more
Yeah, yeah.
because
Or
it's getting hidden by the clouds, but it's still there,
yes,
or
yep,
by the
yeah.
steam.
Totally, yeah. And for me, it makes me wish I had a place like that I could hang out in because that would be a sweet place to be. Yeah, definitely. Nice choice on this one, man. Yeah, really beautiful photo. All right, here's the next one. Keeping it with the wintry theme.
The colors, like that's the first thing that comes out is
Yeah,
the way the colors go down, and then the way the throat and like headband of yellow on the horned lark like match with the yellow, but since it's in the red part, it looks like the horned lark is almost part of this sunrise. And then the cold blue does make you realize that it's such a cold, that it feels cold again,
yeah.
and it feels like a cold uh it feels like a cold morning.
Hmm.
Like that's what I feel when I look at that photo, but then the warmth of the sun almost gives like a sense of, I don't know, happiness or
Yeah,
warmth.
yeah. Those colors, right? Like the day to come.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, totally, man. Dude, I love what you just said about the color, the yellow in the bird, kind of making it feel like it's a part of the sunrise. I hadn't thought of it that way, but as soon as you said it, it's like it clicked. It's like, oh yeah, that really does tie it into that sky back there, you know? Because I first noticed like, oh yeah, I really like the yellows and they match, kind of, but I think you put it into words perfectly there, Tashi. How it just kind of ties that bird and connects it with that sunset, makes it part of it, which I certainly really like. So, um, but yeah, but I pretty much agree with everything you said. I don't have much else to add to that. So that's
So
it's a beautiful image. I love the caption, "Sherbet Sunrise." That's such a great
yeah, it
description of it.
does.
It definitely
Yeah.
has that feel to it.
Yeah, and this just kind of reminds me, we don't get much snow here, but like it reminds me of just laying in the snow and just all the birds, because it's not like one of those snowy scenes where it's just all white, it shows that the
Yep.
birds have been there with the dirt bits.
Yep. No, you're right. Yeah, you're definitely right. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can relate, man. It barely snows here where I'm at too, so I don't get scenes like this very often. Do you shoot in like dawn and dusk like that very often? Do you try and stay, or get there before sunrise or stay after sunset kind of thing, or usually kind of
I
wrap up when the sun's gone?
I try, but it's really hard when you can't go anywhere without your parents.
Well, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. And they're like, "Come
I
on,
just kind of
like wrap
have
it up.
to,
We got places to be."
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny, man. But yeah, it can really make some amazing results, though, can it? Those colors.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's insane.
yeah. You can't really find them during the day. That's for sure. So,
No, definitely not.
oh man, dude, you picked an image that like hits on every one of my favorite points. Of images I really love. Small in frame, beautiful scenery, and then gorgeous backlight, like nice rim light on the great gray there. So yeah, this one is definitely an image that ticks a lot of my boxes for things that I like in a photo. Uh, Absolutely, right off the bat, just love the sense of scale here. Everything feels so big and grand and large, like that tree, the pine that the owl is perched on. Just, I mean, it looks like a massive tree. And then we have that sense of scale back there, and we got more trees coming in the background, but none of those are in focus. But they're in focus enough to kind of see them. They're a great supporting element off on the right side. I love that this trunk is visible back there, but it's so dark and dim that it doesn't distract. And then just the little pops of light coming through, showing that you got the sun, and then of course the little rimlet spotlight of sun right on the bird there. Um, and then this is another one where, I would say more often than not, I'm a portrait shooter with birds, so I'm usually going for eye contact. But this is one where I think not having eye contact works better. This feels like the bird doesn't even know the photographer's there, like we're just witnessing a real natural moment in this bird's life while it's just kind of looking out over the territory there and just surveying and possibly and probably hunting. And yeah, just a beautiful, wide, gorgeously composed scene. So I really like this one a lot, man.
I agree with all the points. I also like that, like, if you have any knowledge on great gray owls, or you realize how big they are, but the great gray owl almost seems like humbled by the size of the
Mm,
tree and this just the size of the background. So it kind of shows you that these like big, massive, like mysterious forest creatures are are just are tiny compared to where they live, and
Yeah.
then like the shape of that trunk that you can see. And
Yep.
I love photos that kind of, like, obviously a portrait with a smooth background is always nice, but
Yeah.
these are my type of photos, ones where it's like it's not a portrait, but it almost alludes to being like it could have been a portrait, but instead
Yep.
the photographer decided to really just take in the beauty of the background and
Yeah,
incorporate it.
definitely, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I fully agree with you. And I know, in the little bit of conversation I've had with Izzy, I know that's something that she's kind of been, consciously working towards, is including more environment and capturing more images like this. And I mean, she absolutely nailed it on this one for sure. Um, Such a great point, Tashi, what you brought up about the size, right? Kind of almost making this large and in charge bird seem small. It's such a great way to give a different view of a species versus, I mean, how many shots you see like these close, intense, sometimes headshots, right? They're not even, you don't even fit the whole bird in the frame. And they're just these larger than life owls, with those huge eyes and a big facial disc and impressive, right? Real, almost intimidating. But here it doesn't appear that way at all. You get to see it almost in a different, pardon the pun, but a different light.
yeah, kind of like shows how it's just another bird. It's not
Yep.
like, obviously it's a big bird, but it's lives in the same world as all the other ones.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah. Yep. There's always something bigger. That's what it shows.
Yeah. Oh, I really love the colors in this one. That's the first thing you see is the obvious reds. It like almost
Yep.
looks like Mars, but then
It does.
the I'm guessing it's a short-eared owl. Yeah.
Yeah.
The short-eared owl flying over the field is it's like such a classic short-eared owl scene, but they were able to capture it, because it's
Yeah.
so hard to capture photo of a short-eared owl, and then the sun like really adds so much to it because the sun's what makes it look otherworldly.
Yep.
And then all the little plants, which have the little backlighting, and same with the
Yeah.
owl, the backlighting really adds something as well.
Yeah, it's nice to have that little touch of rim light, so it's not just a full. I mean, it is a silhouette of the bird, but that little rim light just kind of shows that little bit of glow through a few of those, lighter feathers, those thinner feathers on the bird's wingtips and its face and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, this shot is a great shot without that sun. If it was just a beautiful red sky back there, but that sun just takes it to the next level, doesn't it?
definitely. And then the clouds almost make it look like the hori- horizon line. Like you can just see the clouds and they're
Yep.
encasing the sun, but the sun is still like there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like sliding into a pocket of clouds all the way up in the sky. It hasn't even fully set. It's definitely not a horizon line that it's dipping below there. At least I
Yeah,
assume not. It looks
feels
like it's just, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
just I love it.
so cool. Yeah. And then again, right, like having such a good composition. We have the full sun in there, the clouds at top, but then having the field at the bottom, it gives some context. It's not just this bird flying up in a sky with the sun, right? It's doing its hunting thing at dusk or dawn, I assume, probably sunset. Um, it's doing it right before, yeah, like when it always does. It's out flying over the fields, nice and low, doing its hunting behavior. So that having that field in the bottom, I think, completes that story for me.
Yeah, definitely. Because a lot of times you see these photos that look like this, but it's either doesn't have a ground or doesn't have a sun. But this just incorporates everything, which just balances the image
Yep.
perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. Not an easy thing to have happen. Yeah. Yeah, this is great, man. I didn't even line these photos up. I should put more effort into lining these photos up, but we've been doing like we did like winter, winter. Now we're doing like sun, sun. Like we got some good. We picked some good images that kind of match up here. I was just talking to you before we started the show about this image and how it threw me off because I had loved this image and I thought I had set it aside to pick for the show myself and then realized like, oh, you picked it out, which is awesome, because this image to me it's so cool and creative. I just really love. This is an impression of a bird to me. I can't tell what species it is, but you know it's a bird. It could be flying towards me. It could be flying away. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just this is like an impression of flight. It really is what it is. It's so cool how those the wings and the tail feathers splayed out like that are just the only elements glowing, and I can't even fully see the rest of the outline of the bird. I mean, maybe I just start picking it up at the top there just a little bit, Like if I really zoom in, I can kind of start to see the outline of the bird there. But yeah, it's just amazing how this shape just still screams bird at you. It's obvious. It's nothing else, but there's not a lot to work with there. And then the lens flare and the spotlight effect and how it just fades to a nice dark black. I really love that. And compositionally, I think it works really well.
Yeah, I think because birds in flight is so hard, especially like when the caption, it says tree swallow, and you
Yeah.
see that, and that makes it like most all birds in flight are so hard, but swallows are so much harder.
Yep.
But with the impression and stuff, it's like he and then it's small in frame, got the lens flare, it's got everything that makes a photo like creative. And
Yeah.
it's just so unique because you don't see many photos like this that a photographer decides to zoom out during sunset and get a
Yeah.
and catch a photo of a bird in flight.
Yeah, and that's not an easy exposure to handle, like to think about. Like you really, as a photographer, you really got to think ahead. Like, all right, I'm gonna expose this way, go dark, just make it all about the glow on the wings. Like you gotta. That's a real creative vision and a great eye to be able to pick up on that and then achieve that capture in the moment because, you know, uh, you probably see those glowing feathers for like half a second when these things are flying around. It's probably not something you see constantly. They got to hit the right spot, the right angle, and then their feathers got to be splayed out just right. So, it'd be probably so easy to photograph it any other number of ways as far as exposure and that sort of thing. But the photographer chose to go this much more dramatic and, like I said, impressionistic almost way. I
Yeah,
think
and
it works really well.
I love how it's like it's got the backlight, it's got the backlighting, it's got all of that. But normally you'd have a sun in there, but I like how there's no sun, how the
Oh
sun
yeah.
almost seems like just like it's there, but we can't see it because it I love how it kind of takes that bird because it almost makes me feel like there's like a scene behind it. I can imagine my own
Mm.
scene and but I don't know what the scene actually is because it's so dark, but you
Yep.
can imagine what it's like behind there.
Yeah, you get to put your own scene in there in your mind, as the viewer, which is great. And I very much agree. I think with an image like this, the bird is so small and I don't want to use the word insignificant because it's not, but I don't know what the right word is, but it's small in the frame. So if you put a big bright sun in there somewhere or even a portion of it, it's going to dominate, I think. You know what I mean? Whereas the previous photo, the bird is it's a larger bird, even though it's small in frame in that short-haired owl, it's larger, it's dominant, it's really standing out. This one, it's like the bird is kind of subtly here. And so I think if you had a big piece of sun or the entire sun in there, it would really take over. So I very much agree with you. I think it was
And
a great
probably,
thing not to have it.
yeah, if you put the sun there, chances are what else would happen is it would light it up and then the bird would you would be able to see the entire silhouette, which isn't a bad thing. But I
Correct.
love in this photo how it's almost blends into the background. It's just the
Yes.
edges of the wings and tail.
Yep. Yep. You're right. It just becomes a very different photo when that sun enters into the frame, most likely. Because there's nothing else to look at in this. That's it, right? It's the
Yeah.
birds. It's a bird is what you get, and then you can just spend some time enjoying the colors and stuff back here. But there's no other texture or sharpness or details for your eye to latch onto. So it's all about that bird.
Yeah.
That's a cool shot, man. It really is. All right, here's the next one.
Oh, I love these types of shots, these like
Yeah.
backlight with water,
Yeah.
and especially with this action in it of
Right.
these two ibis fighting. And yeah, and the way that they are the way that it's not just a full silhouette, because a lot of people would probably go full silhouette here and have like a lighter background, but I love how it's just this dark background. It almost feels like they're like in space because you
Yeah.
can't see the water. So it's just these like two birds fighting in this darkness,
Yep.
just water splashing everywhere.
Yeah.
And it looks like stars, and then both of their beaks are open, their wings out. It's just really cool.
It's some intense action. It really is. I mean, you don't get much more action than that right there. And really cool behavior showing how these birds, can get really aggressive with each other when there's some territorial disputes or something like that. And then the main thing I want to point out is I'm so jealous of the shot because I shot white ibis fighting down in Florida this past year, and I was really happy with them until Caleb drops this image. I'm like, man, this is so much better. Yeah, but I agree with everything you said. Love the lighting. And one of the great things you can do with white birds like this, right, is you can expose for them, still get detail on them, but because they're bright and white and glowing in that sun, you can still get a blacked out background like that. So white birds like this are great for making dramatic shots because, some of the light that we're seeing like on their heads and necks here is probably just like reflecting off their own wings and like bouncing into there and helping illuminate them. I've certainly seen that before with white birds if they have a wing out or another bird kind of bouncing some light off of them. So,
Yeah, it's definitely almost confusing on where the light is coming from,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
which normally it would be annoying, but in this case it looks super cool because it just
yep,
it I love it. Because and then the glowing on the right one's beak
yes, yep,
adds
right,
like you can
right up in there.
almost see that the bird has this like red bill, and it takes all the elements of just a white ibis and it puts them into an action shot and a silhouette or and a black background shot,
Yeah.
plus just the amazingness that this is able to capture.
Yeah, such a wonderful moment captured right here. And this is such a great example of taking, a species that most people, especially someone like Caleb who lives in Florida, I mean, a white ibis is so easy to ignore, right? It's like one of the most common, half the time, super friendly birds. So, it's they're just super easy, often overlooked. But this is a capture that makes this bird stand out and look incredible, even though they're probably a common overlooked species down there. So,
Yeah.
all right, next up, keeping with some wing action here, interaction. Nice. Yeah. Um, I love the wings out on this. Willet are so classic in the wing department. That wing pattern, that's when Willet stand out, right? They're like such a plain bird, and then they take off. You're like, wow, that's incredible. So really cool that it shows off that wing pattern. I love that there's a second bird there, but that second bird is really takes a back seat in this. It's kind of all about that one bird that's facing us. But the reason that bird is acting the way it is because of this second bird, which is really cool. Again, love the water spray there. The backlight is key on this to make that kind of glow the way it does. Also adds the bokeh into the water in the background. I love that we get just a touch of horizon back there, so it gives us a little bit more sense of place and perspective in the scene. And then like this rocky bouldery field is kind of impressive. I mean, the shorelines I shoot Willet in are nothing like that. So for me, it's a really cool different habitat to see them in as well. And it also looks like I could see, like looking at this bird, I could see how they so seamlessly would just blend into a habitat like this. They could easily just look like one of the rocks until they spread their wings and start glowing in the sun like that. But man, what a great interaction shot like that.
Yeah, I interaction shots are always my favorite. They've just always been. And I just love how you can almost think of it like obviously they're probably just fighting because of territory or something, but when these action shots almost allow you to make them almost you can like put like human thoughts into
Yep.
them with your own imagination,
Sure.
and you can have them do you can like think of it as however you want, and
Yeah.
how it's just could be because it could just be a normal interaction, just two birds fighting. But I love how as humans we're able to see these shots and be able to put our own imagination of what it could be happening.
Yeah, you can
And
make a
then
whole story up.
obviously obviously the backlighting, the waves in the background, and the rocky beach. And also the rocks feel so large, and
Yeah.
but then it also makes the birds feel so small.
Hmm.
Even though the birds like willets are pretty large
Yep.
shorebirds, but they make this rock feel makes them look so small and almost dwarfs them in comparison to
It
the
definitely does.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, very much agree with that. Yeah, yeah, it is fun how you can put your own story on it because in reality these could be like a male female pair. You know what I mean? And they could just be like interacting. The one happened to fly. Like we have without being there, right? We don't know what the situation was. But yeah, it is fun to kind of put your own spin on it as a viewer. Um, you know, a nice. It's just a wonderful thing that comes with interactive photos like that. Whereas portraits don't tend to allow that same creative thinking as a viewer, I would say.
Yeah.
Nice, man. All right, here comes the last one.
I love that. The
Yeah.
the setting or maybe rising, I don't know which one, but I'm gonna say it's a setting sun in
Yeah, I
this
think
place.
for her.
I love the how there's a gradient on the actual sun,
Yes,
which
that's always neat.
yeah, it's so hard to get that unless it's like right on the horizon.
Oh yeah.
So like the gradient in the sun plus like the yellow circle around it that also has a gradient makes the sun super important, super like a good part of the frame, but the sun doesn't take away from the tiny little plover that's that's in the little light beam, which
Yep.
I'm guessing is from a wave or something. So that
Yep.
plover is like defined. So the plover is the first thing that comes out that like you see on the frame, but then your eyes go around to like the sun and then the pier and then the waves and the really dark foreground and then the beautiful light, the
Yeah.
beautiful colors, obviously.
I wonder often with a photo like this, if you show it to the average person and ask them what's the subject of this photo, what they would say, Because to me as a bird photographer, it's painfully the bird, right? It's just obviously that's the bird, right? That's the subject of this photo. That's where my eye goes right away. That's where I stay. But I kind of wonder, is that because of the photo, or is that because I'm a bird photographer? Because I could see somebody else that's maybe not a bird photographer saying, and maybe not I could see it, but I wonder if somebody that's not a bird photographer would say, oh, it's the beautiful sunset scene back there. You know what I mean? And so I think it's kind of neat how a photo like this can maybe potentially be interpreted a couple different ways based on who you are as the viewer. I think all bird photographers and wildlife photographers would zero right in on that plover right down there. The placement of that bird in the it looks like the wet sand, like a wave just washed up, like you said, in that beam of light down there is so flawless. I mean, it's so perfect. I mean, that's a tiny in frame bird right there. That bird barely takes up any space in this image, but to me, my eye goes right to it and I stay with it. I'm just like, oh, that's so perfect. And so for her to just include all that space around it, that, like you said, the colors back there, the gradient, the sun, it all just works so wonderfully. I love the context of the pier and the buildings back there that just give another, it tells a story of like, man, it's hard to find any of these birds with where there's no human presence, right? Because if it's a beach, we're there in most places, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
I love how the sunset it gives because like sunsets are such like a calming thing. So it
yes.
like has a calm like vibe to it, but then the waves and the way that one of the
Yeah.
plover's feet is up,
Yep.
which shows that it's moving around, kind
Yeah.
of also makes the image seem very like motion, have tons of motion while also being a super calm and like
Yep.
quiet image.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I very much agree with you. The overall sense of it is calming, but then when you dig your eye into it, like there's motion, there's movement, there's crashing waves, there's a lot going on there.
Mhm.
There definitely is. And yeah, I mean, what a scene. That's one of those where you're like, oh, I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Nice, dude. Well, we did it, man. Thanks so much. That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. You picked some awesome images, man, and I loved hearing your thoughts on a lot of them. You have some great viewpoints, and it's great to hear that, Tashi. So,
Yeah.
thanks so
Thank you.
much. Yeah, you're very welcome, man. Hey, you got any upcoming plans for doing any photography? Anything coming up this week, next weekend? What's on the
Uh,
horizon for you?
I don't really know. This is my parents are really busy in the summertime because
Okay,
but I probably just a lot of sunsets and
cool.
maybe I might be going up to the mountains, which is super cool.
Okay, nice, man. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing what else you come up with over the season, and hopefully you do get out there soon. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. Please do me a favor, share these out with everybody. Share them out with all your fellow friends and photographers. And right now, I have some time. I've recorded a bunch of these, so you're going to be seeing them every Saturday for a while. So stay tuned next Saturday for the next one. Thanks again. See you soon.